Hyper Legendary Fusion Update. Welcome back to another Bit Legend video, fellas. Here we go. So in patch 0.6.0, they have updated some of the hyper legendary fusion monsters. So first off, why do I call them hyper? That's because they are legendary fusions, and they're legendary fusions because they're yellow, they're not red, they are not mythic, but they are yellow legendary fusions. However, they have 5% or so more total stats than a regular legendary fusion, and they also take legendary fusions to fuse them together. So yes, very confusing. I hope that they will change these and make them into mythics, because they basically are mythic fusions, but they're legendaries at the moment, so that's what I'm going to call them, hyper legendary fusions. Now there's a couple of these guys that were updated, and we'll talk about that today. So here we go. We're starting off with the biggest boy. This is Odin and Dragon, the coolest looking kid on the block as far as cosmetically. But if we look at his stats and his bonus and his kit and basically everything about him, I start to scratch my head because I don't really understand what's going on. So his bonuses are unchanged, 40% hit points. He's got crit damage. He's got crit. The problem here is hit point percentage, and the problem of that is compounded by his stats. So it looks like they have taken some of his attack stat and put it into agility. However, he still has a ton of stamina. He has so much stamina that makes this guy potentially unusable. How would you fix this? Now, first off, the stats of a monster are scaled to the character that is looking at it. So my character has 3,050 total stats, so keep in mind that the stats that I'm seeing are going to be scaled to my character. But to fix this guy, what they would have to do is they would have to take off the 40% hit points in battle, take that off and either switch it to speed or damage or literally any other offensive bonus at all. Just take off the hit point percentage. His job is to do damage. He is not a tank. Nobody's using him to tank. And they would also have to take his stamina stat down to probably around 700, and then put the remaining stats that they're taking out of stamina, split it evenly or so, and put it into attack stat and into agility. That is how you would fix this guy. This is the most expensive to make. He's going to take the most time. He's going to take the most resources to make this guy. But right now, I can't make a single argument for using this guy over anything else. They got to fix the bonus. They got to fix the stats. But it looks like they just put attack stat into agility. Now, the problem was previously his agility was so low that if you're in high tier content, this is tier 11, 12, 13, 14, he was so slow that he would never get a single attack off, maybe one if you're lucky. So he was essentially useless. It's like a tank with no defense. So can't really make an argument for him. Let's take a look at his stats. His skills are very lackluster. There's a lot wanting here. He's got closest, 1 SP closest, 2 SP closest, 2 SP random, and then a 2 SP heal all allies. So he's not getting enough turns to get the SP off, or to get enough SP to use these skills. Now with agility, he'll get a little bit more SP. He'll get like maybe another turn per battle, but his skills are very lacking. He's just got a closest attacks. Not what I would want from a hyper legendary fusion, and I would expect a lot more, because I'm going to be very critical of all of these hypers because they are so expensive to make. They have to be near perfect. They don't have to be perfect, but they have to be close to, and he just doesn't make any sense. So very disappointing now. We've had some players use him in Guild Boss, and he has had no output. He's just basically taking up a slot. So, like I said, take off the hit point percentage, put an offensive bonus there, damage, speed, a combination of anything, I don't know, and then take his stamina down to like 700 and then split it against the other offensive stats. But yeah, scratching my head on this one's not making any sense. Let's go up to Blue Universe. Blue Universe is probably the best tank fusion in the game. They have taken some of his attack stat and put it into his agility. So he basically has the same agility as Odin that we just looked at. Let's start at the top. So hit point percentage, no problem there. 60% block, that is awesome. And then high stamina, so that is good too. He was probably the best tank before the change. He probably still is the best tank after the change, at least in PvE. So he's still doing his job. I think it was kind of like a sideways change to put his attack stat into agility. Give or take, not the biggest deal. I would probably, if we're talking like optimal, I'd probably prefer if he had more stamina. But he was good before, he's still good now. If we look at his skills, he's got closest, he's got 1 SP heal all. This is actually a pretty good heal, honestly. If you're thinking about bringing 2 healers, or you have the option of bringing this guy and 1 healer, or maybe sometimes he could be your only healer if you're not taking a lot of damage, maybe doing like Ordeal or Trials, and it's not too difficult. So the healing skill here is good, and the fact that he's got more agility, he'll get more SP, he'll be able to use the healing skill more. So I don't really have too many gripes about this one. And then we look at his other attacks. He's got closest, he's got furthest, he's got 2 SP closest. This guy actually has a better kit than Odin and he has better attacks. I mean, so anyways, the whole reason of making this is so that he'll be in the front and he'll be your tank. This guy will do his job, no real problems there. So Blue Universe, he's doing okay. Let's go over to Zeus Bird. So originally Zeus Bird had a ton of stamina, and his skills, I thought that he might be switched into a tank because everything about him was tanky except for his bonuses. Let's start at the top here. So damage and triple damage, no real problem there for an offensive monster. Those are fine bonuses. His stats, he used to have a ton of stamina that got moved into agility, so now he also has around 1,000 agility, which is kind of like the pattern that we're seeing here. As far as a DPS monster, his stats aren't bad. His stamina is a little bit high, but sometimes it's nice having some healthy stamina on there so your monster can take 2 hits and not die, or maybe in this case 3 hits and not die, so that's not horrible. So okay, I'm not upset about anything. If we look at his skills, this is where the problem is. So he's got the closest enemy like everybody. He's got a 1 SP shield self. That is a massive problem, and let me explain why. So first off, the icon for shield self is incorrect, and hopefully I'll get around to reporting that. It should be a shielding icon, not a healing icon. This is the icon they use for healing, but that's not the point here. The reason why shield self is a problem is because the way that the autopilot works, if the character in question does not have full shields, the autopilot uses the shield self skill almost all of the time. So what's going to happen when you autopilot with Zeus Bird? He's going to do his 0 SP closest, and then he's going to shield self, and then he's going to do closest and shield self, and closest and shield self. And let's say even if his shields get full, eventually he's going to take 5% AoE damage or attack all damage, and then he's going to start shielding himself again. So you're going to put a lot of resources in to make Zeus Bird. However, at the end of the battle, when you look at the damage meter, you're going to wonder why Zeus Bird is doing 0 damage. Why your Blue Universe is probably doing the same amount of damage as this guy, because he's constantly shielding himself. That's just how the autopilot works. So that's a massive problem. That's big enough for me not to recommend this monster to anyone. The only exception would be if you are using him in manual and you're manualing all the skills and you can control what skills he uses. Then he'll be better because he has a pretty good kit. Otherwise, 1 SP weakest enemy is good, 1 SP strongest enemy is great. Strongest enemy is the highest damage multiplier, I believe, so that's a really good skill to have. So if you were manualing and using this against Guild Boss, you'd actually do fairly well there, and he would take a good hit. The weakest enemy is fine. There are no bait tanks in the game. A bait tank is a tank with very low stamina but very high defensive bonuses. That way attack weakest go to them. But there's really no bait tanks right now. There's no bait tank minions or fusions, and players are not bait tanks because until like an update ago, as a bait tank you would get 1 shot, because as a high stamina tank you get 1 shot. So TLDR, there's no bait tank, so attack weakest is great. Attack strongest is really, really good. 2 SP heal all, okay, I don't hate it. I don't have a problem there. Now, how would they fix this? If they changed the shield self to shield team or to heal target or something that is not self, then I think that would fix this guy, and he would be worth considering. I don't know, recommending, but he'd be worth considering. But as it stands right now, I'm very concerned about the autopilot just constantly using the shield self skill and him doing effectively no damage. But last thing I'll say is, again, if you're using him in manual, he'll actually do pretty well. In Guild Boss, like Guild Boss 4, where there's a lot of damage, a lot of random damage, he would survive, and he would be able to rock off a bunch of these attack strongest. So that would be the one place where he would shine. But is that enough for me to recommend him based on how much these guys cost to make? I'm going to hold out on that one and wait. But there you go. So he's been improved, but still big question mark there. And Flame God. All right, so let's take a look. 10% speed, 5% crit, 30% triple damage. Those are awesome DPS bonuses. Let's look at his stats. He has got a good amount of stamina. I think his stamina is almost perfect. 600, 700 or so, I think, is a great amount of stamina for a DPS. I have no problems there. And obviously, if you want more stamina on him, you can just upgrade him and consume or devour and just upgrade him that way. Of course, that's going to be incredibly expensive and take a long time, but it is nice to have long-term goals. So I think his stamina is completely fine, no problems there. His attack stat's good, his agility stat's good. I think his stats are very close to optimal, and his offensive bonuses are really good. Looking at his kit, so closest enemy, 1 SP weakest enemy. We talked about how weakest is good because there's no bait to tanks in the game, so the weakest enemy attack is probably always going to hit someone squishy. So that's pretty good. He's got an attack random. Attack random has a very high damage multiplier. That's why you're seeing 117 to 173 or 273. So really good there. This kind of attack really shines when you're fighting against a single enemy. And so, for example, that would be Guild Boss. Right now, when you fight Guild Boss, the trash enemies die in one hit, and then you fight the Guild Boss as a solo enemy for a long time. So if you're in that case, having a 1 SP attack random or a 1 SP attack strongest are going to do a ton of damage if they can stay alive. And I think Flame God has just enough stamina to do that. So I'm liking him so far. He's got a 1 SP attack to closest enemies. Okay, no problem there. And then he's got a 2 SP attack target enemy. This is going to shine when you're fighting against a lot of reflect and you need to be really careful on what you're attacking. He does, however, have the attack weakest ability, so you don't really need the attack target that much, but it is nice as an option to have. And I think the coolest thing, honestly, is the attack animation is the coolest attack animation in the entire game. I mean, just look at that. For any of you who haven't picked it up yet, if you click on the skill icon, or just the skill itself, it'll show you the attack animations for all these monsters. So I think Thermal Beam looks amazing. And it doesn't show any particle effects while you're here, but in actual combat, you will see a particle effect as well. So Thermal Beam looks awesome. His kit is fine. I have no problems here. He's going to be a high DPS output. He's got enough stamina to stay alive. The only downside to all of these hypers is just that the cost to make these guys is just so high. So let's go and take a look at the recipes before I wrap this video up. I don't have all of them, but I can talk about at least Odin. So Odin and Dragon, he takes Sanctuary Messenger, Deity Mech, and Thunder Monster, so that's not going to be cheap. That's going to be very difficult. Again, I just can't recommend anybody making Odin. I think he looks amazing, but his kit, everything needs a full rework. And then as far as Flame God, thumbs up to Flame God. He looks awesome. We saw that. But let's look at his recipe. So he takes Hero. Every time you make a hero, that is one swordsman that you can't make. And right now, for me, swordsman is my best output on guild bosses. So that's pretty difficult because it takes the raid 2 boss. You have to choose either you make swordsman or you make hero. So that kind of hurts right there. And then Hell Mantis. Hell Mantis is not too difficult, but full armored mech is relatively difficult. And you have to choose, are you going to just devour all your full armored mechs and upgrade him, or you're going to use them in the fusion over here. And of course, once you've devoured a monster, at the time of filming this, there is no way to undevour. I don't know if they're going to add some sort of item in the gem shop in the future for 1,000 gems you can undevour all your guys. I think that would be a good addition, but you gotta pick. I think Flame God's amazing, but the cost is extremely high. And the last thing that I'll talk about before wrapping it up is Full Armor Mech. So he is also one of the hyperfusions. The reason why I say that is because he's relatively difficult to make, and he has 5% more total stats than a regular legendary fusion. He was not updated in this patch, and I don't think people really proposed to update him, because a lot of people didn't make him because he takes black market materials to make, and a lot of people don't have those materials, so people haven't really been testing him out. As far as I know, I'm like one of the only people that uses him because of that. But let's take a look at him. So 55% speed, that's awesome. 10% triple damage, that's good too. His kit is great. He's got closest enemy, 1 SP heal target. He's got attack target, which is great for sniping. And then he's got an attack random, which is great, like I've said before. When you're against a single boss, the attack random is always going to hit that. So you can benefit from this really high damage value bonus. And then the 2 SP attack weakest, so no problem there. But keep in mind, if you're fighting a single enemy and you have 2 SP, it would be better for you just to use your attack random skill, because they have essentially, attack random actually has a little bit higher of a multiplier. So attack weakest doesn't make a ton of sense, because if I have 2 SP and I want to snipe, I'm going to use my attack target skill, and then the next turn I'll use another attack target skill. And if there's only 1 enemy left, I'm just going to be spamming attack random because it's a higher damage. So the 2 SP attack weakest doesn't really do anything for anybody, but the rest of his kit is so good that it's easy to overlook that. The only problem here is, and it's not really a problem, this is kind of a preference thing, is that his attack stat. His attack stat is so high that in short battles, he will not get any attacks off. And so keep in mind, this guy is a healer. His job is primarily to heal, and after that to do damage. So if his agility is so low, even with 55% speed, his attack rate is going to be so slow that maybe he gets 1 or 2 attacks off per battle. And in PvP, a lot of times, even though he's got high stamina, because he's so slow, he can get killed before he gets a single attack off. So the only way to fix that would be to take a good amount of his attack stat and put it into his agility, and then that would make him a ton better. He would be much more consistent as a healer. Right now, he doesn't heal soon enough in a lot of cases, and when he does heal, it's overhealing, because he's got just so much attack stat that you're wasting a lot of that healing. If his agility was higher and his attack stat was lower, his heals would be more consistent. You wouldn't be overhealing as much. You'd have a lot more options. I think his stamina is fine. I think his stamina should stay where it is, but the attack stat's so high. And so, like I said, in short battles, he won't be able to get a lot of attacks off, maybe 1, maybe 2. But also in PvP, his chance to get reflected and killed in one shot is pretty much 100%. Even on his basic attack, I've seen him get one shot. So that's definitely something to think about. It's very hard to use him in PvP and, like I said, other quick battles. And then the last issue is the only way to get materials for him is in events that are very, very rare, and those materials were very expensive, or in the black market, which is also very expensive for gems. And the recipe on him is relatively difficult because of that. So I would like to see this guy get changed, take down his attack stat, put it into agility, leave his speed stat alone. Everything else is pretty fine. I still plan to continue to upgrade this guy just to kind of see where it goes. I used him in Guild Boss. I think he was valuable there. And he's not as expensive as like a Flame God, for example. But there you go. So that's what I got to say about the updates. I do like that the developers are taking feedback and making adjustments. I would like to see like a little bit more substance with the upgrades and things like. I just think it's not okay for Odin to not have a good kit. He's the coolest looking monster in the game. He is the most expensive resource-wise monster in the game, but his kit needs a complete rework. So hopefully that'll happen. You know, we're still in early access. Devs are responding to feedback, and trust me, we're given a ton of it. So I do hope this will be improved in the future. And when that happens, I'll make another video telling you all about it. As always, I appreciate you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next video.